The morning sun cast long shadows across the quiet suburban street in Cedar Falls, Iowa, as 72-year-old Walter Jenkins sat on his front porch, staring at the empty dog bed beside his rocking chair. 3 days had passed since Rusty, his beloved golden retriever, had disappeared during a thunderstorm that shook the entire neighborhood. The bed remained untouched, a painful reminder of the companion who had shared every sunrise with him for the past 8 years. Walter's arthritic hands trembled as he reached for his morning coffee, not from the cool autumn breeze, but from the overwhelming worry that consumed him. Rusty wasn't just a pet, he was Walter's lifeline after losing his wife Margaret 2 years earlier. The dog had been her final gift to him, a puppy she'd surprised him with just months before her passing, as if she somehow knew he would need a reason to keep going. The search efforts had been relentless. Neighbors had formed search parties, local animal shelters were notified, and missing dog flyers decorated every telephone pole within a 5-mile radius. But as each hour passed without a sign of Rusty, hope seemed to fade like the autumn leaves falling from the oak trees lining Maple Street. On this particular morning, Walter's neighbor, Emma Rodriguez, a young mother of 2, approached his porch with a steaming cup of homemade soup. She had been checking on him daily since Rusty disappeared, understanding the depth of his loss in a way that surprised him. Her own rescue dog, a scrappy little terrier named Pepper, had gone missing years earlier, only to be found after 2 weeks of searching. As Emma handed him the soup, her phone buzzed with a notification from a local Facebook group called Cedar Falls Pet Alerts. Her eyes widened as she read the post aloud. A family camping at Pine Lake State Park, about 15 miles north of town, had spotted a golden retriever matching Rusty's description. The dog appeared healthy but scared, staying near their campsite but running away whenever anyone approached. Walter's heart leaped with a mixture of hope and desperation. 15 miles might as well have been 1,500, his old pickup truck had broken down the week before Rusty disappeared, and he was still waiting for parts to arrive at the local garage. His fixed income barely covered the repair costs, and calling a taxi for multiple trips to search a state park was financially impossible. Emma immediately offered to drive him, but her own car was in the shop after a minor fender bender. The other neighbors were either at work or faced their own transportation challenges. As Walter sat in his kitchen, staring at the photo of the dog from the Facebook post that looked heartbreakingly similar to Rusty, he felt the walls of impossibility closing in around him. Then his eyes fell on something in his garage that he hadn't considered before, his trusty red Craftsman riding lawnmower. The machine that had faithfully maintained his quarter-acre lot for over a decade suddenly represented something much more significant, his only chance to reach Pine Lake and bring Rusty home. Walter knew it sounded crazy. The lawnmower's top speed was barely 8 miles per hour, and the journey would take him over rural roads, through small towns, and along busy highways. But as he looked at Rusty's favorite tennis ball sitting by the back door, he realized that crazy was exactly what love sometimes demanded. He spent the next hour preparing for the journey that would challenge every assumption about what a desperate heart could accomplish. He filled the gas tank, checked the tire pressure, and packed a small cooler with water and sandwiches that Emma had insisted on preparing. Word of his plan spread quickly through the neighborhood, and soon his garage was filled with concerned friends trying to talk him out of what they saw as a dangerous mission. But Walter's mind was made up. As he climbed onto the familiar seat of his mower, he carried with him not just hope, but the accumulated love of 8 years with a dog who had never left his side during the darkest period of his life. The engine puttered to life with its characteristic steady rhythm, and Walter began the most important journey of his life. The first few miles through the residential streets drew curious stares and supportive waves from neighbors who had heard about his mission. Children playing in yards stopped to point and cheer as the determined man on the red mower passed by, creating an impromptu parade of community support. Emma followed behind in a borrowed car, hazard lights flashing, becoming his unofficial escort and guardian angel. As Walter navigated onto the rural county roads, the landscape opened up into the rolling hills and farmland that defined central Iowa. The autumn colors seemed more vibrant, the sky more expansive, as if the world itself was encouraging his journey. Farmers working in their fields stopped their tractors to wave, and more than once, a pickup truck slowed down to offer assistance, only to receive Walter's polite but determined wave to continue. The miles passed slowly but steadily. Walter's back ached from the mower's seat, and his hands grew stiff from gripping the steering wheel, but his resolve never wavered. At one point, a state trooper pulled alongside him, concerned about the unusual sight of a man on a lawnmower traveling down a state highway. After hearing Walter's story, the officer not only allowed him to continue but provided a brief escort to ensure his safety through a particularly busy intersection. News of Walter's journey began spreading beyond Cedar Falls. Local radio stations picked up the story, and social media posts about the man on the lawnmower searching for his lost dog began generating shares and comments from across the state. Strangers offered prayers, encouragement, and promises to keep an eye out for both Walter and Rusty. After nearly 4 hours of travel, Walter finally reached the entrance to Pine Lake State Park. His fuel gauge was nearly empty, his body was exhausted, but his heart pounded with anticipation. Emma, who had followed faithfully behind him, helped coordinate with park rangers who had been alerted to watch for both the missing dog and the incoming rescue mission. The park's winding roads led to the camping area where the golden retriever had been spotted. As Walter's mower puttered into the campground, heads turned and campers emerged from their tents and RVs, drawn by the unusual arrival and the story that had preceded him. And then, from beneath a picnic table at a distant campsite, Walter saw a flash of golden fur. His heart stopped as a familiar face peered out cautiously, ears perked but body tense with uncertainty. It was Rusty, thinner than before and clearly weary from his days in the wilderness, but unmistakably the dog who had slept beside Walter's bed every night for 8 years. Walter turned off the mower's engine and sat perfectly still, afraid that any sudden movement might send Rusty running again. In the quiet that followed, he simply called the dog's name in the same gentle tone he had used every morning when they sat together on the porch. Rusty's ears twitched at the familiar voice. His head tilted in that characteristic way that had always melted Walter's heart. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, dog and man looked at each other across 30 yards of campground, both processing the miracle of their reunion. Then Rusty took one tentative step forward, then another. His tail began a hesitant wag that grew more confident with each step. The dog's pace quickened from a walk to a trot to a full run, and suddenly Walter found himself embracing the furry friend he thought he might never see again. Tears flowed freely down Walter's weathered cheeks as Rusty covered his face with kisses, the dog's entire body wiggling with joy. The assembled campers erupted in cheers and applause, many of them wiping away their own tears at witnessing such pure, unconditional love. The journey home became a celebration. Word had spread throughout Cedar Falls about Walter's successful mission, and neighbors lined the streets to welcome home both hero and dog. The local news station had sent a crew to capture the homecoming, but the real story wasn't about the unusual mode of transportation or the distance traveled, it was about the lengths we go to for those we love. As Walter and Rusty resumed their morning routine on the front porch, the empty dog bed once again occupied by its rightful owner, Walter reflected on the journey that had changed him. The 15-mile trip on his lawnmower had reminded him that community exists everywhere, that kindness knows no boundaries, and that love provides strength we never knew we possessed. Emma continued to bring soup on difficult mornings, but now she stayed to hear Walter's stories about Margaret, about Rusty's puppyhood, and about the camping trip that had brought them all closer together. The neighborhood children made regular stops to pet Rusty and hear the tale of the great lawnmower rescue, their eyes wide with the magic of a story that proved heroes come in all ages and drive all kinds of vehicles. Walter's old red Craftsman mower resumed its regular duties maintaining his lawn, but it carried with it the honor of having served in the most important mission of its mechanical life. Sometimes, on quiet mornings, Walter would pat the mower's hood and whisper a thank you for being the vehicle that brought his family back together. This story reminds us that love knows no limits, that community support can move mountains, and that sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin with the simple decision to never give up on those who matter most. If this tale of determination and devotion touched your heart, please like this video and share it with others who believe in the power of love to overcome any obstacle. Subscribe to Pure Kindness Stories for more inspiring tales that celebrate the beautiful connections between humans and the animals who make our lives complete. Because in a world that often feels divided, stories like Walter and Rusty's remind us that kindness, courage, and unconditional love are the forces that truly bring us home.